Now, the third arrow comes from the catechumens. Now, we hear the word catechumens. Okay? Actually, the word comes from to katechetik, meaning to hear out loud, to learn out loud. We still have catechists. And catechumens were the ones who were being catechized. Right? And so the early Christian community said, well, how should new Christians enter into the church? Well, what we'll do is we'll try to imitate Jesus. What did Jesus do before his baptism? 40 days in the desert. So the last, and by the way, the catechumenate in the early church was 3 years long. Okay? 3 years long. You didn't just attend a few inquiry classes. Okay? And so the last 40 days before they were baptized on Easter was considered an imitation of Jesus. And so they went in unto a fast, just like Jesus went into the desert. All of these three, over time, merged into Lent, which was a preparation for Easter. Because what happened? That the penitents, the catechumens, and the fast were already there. And they started saying, you know, the catechumens are not the only ones who need to be catechized. During this time of Lent, you're going to be hearing people going through what are called scrutinies. Scrutinies are not, we are scrutinizing you. You're a dirty sinner. No. The word scrutiny means look closely. Look closely. And what scrutinies are is the catechumens are invited to look closely at their lives, at how they are being fake. How are they unlike what God wants them to be? How are they unlike that? And so they scrutinize, and the penitents, of course, had to scrutinize their own sinfulness. And so what the church said is, you know, in order to support all of these people, all of us are sinners. All of us need to learn more about our faith. And all of us need to fast before Easter to prepare ourselves. And so that's when they declared the season of Lent. But remember the purpose. The purpose is to refocus. It's not to cause yourself pain to please God. You know, I always say that in one of my first sermons on Ash Wednesday, how I used to give up chocolate when I was a little kid, when I was 12 or 13 years old. I'd give up chocolate. And then at the very end of Lent, I would go and buy the mother of all, solid chocolate bunnies. And I would gorge to the point until I was sick. Okay? And I thought, during Lent, God, you see how much I love you? How much I'm suffering for you? You see that? And then at the very end of Lent, I would gorge on chocolate, vomit. And I am sure God in heaven was going, oh, look at Mario. How much he loves me. Watch him puke. That means nothing. And so you're not, the whole point is to make reasonable. You know, there's another story I just heard the other day. A little kid who his father told him, you know, you need to give up something that is not good during Lent, something that is sinful that you need to really remedy about your life. And so he said, okay, Dad, I'm going to give up fighting or beating up my brother for Lent. And his father, a few weeks later, said, how's it going? The little boy said, it's going great, Dad, but I can't wait till Easter. Wrong. That's not the point. Okay? So, you kind of need to let go of silly devotions. I don't care if you have done this since you were 6 years old and your parents told you to give up something or other. Okay? It makes no sense. Now, what are some of the practices that communally we do together? Abstinence. What is abstinence? Abstinence is the eating of meat used to be identified as rich people's food because it couldn't be kept very well. And so the poor would very seldom have meat. And so what began is the focus on eating something simple and letting go of meat was focusing on more simple food. And so the Catholic Church does that together. It makes absolutely no sense to give up meat and have lobster. The whole point is not to eat fish. Right? The whole point is I'm going to join the Catholic Church together in focusing on a simple food. And I'm not going to gorge so that I can focus my attention and remember who I am. Now it's interesting. I ran into a concept that I really liked when I was, and it's in one of the articles. If some of you were able to read the articles on the web, which I really recommend. John, who is our videographer, and Margaret do a tremendous job in looking for articles. And these days, there's tons of stuff on the web. And so what we do is we try to sift through it for you and come up with some really good articles that will prepare you for this get together. But one of the articles by a great professor by the name of Richard Rollheiser tells about a monk who had to ask permission for everything. And at first he resented it. Having to ask permission to have a toothbrush, to get a shirt from his superior, until he really realized what the whole point of it was, and that it is that what he was given was to be considered ad usam. Now, what does that mean? It's Latin for your use. For your use. And he tells in the story, and I encourage you to go to the web and read it. And the article is called Ad Usam. And it's a story also of a man, it's actually no story, it's the reality, of a gentleman who leaves the Redemptorists later and he becomes a doctor. And he goes to this priest who's still a friend of his, happens to be visiting one time, and he opens in his very nice office, he opens one of his books, medical books, and in the front it says Ad Usam. And he says, why? He asks the doctor, why are you doing that? He says, I put it everywhere because it reminds me that nothing is mine, that everything is given to me for my use. It is not my possession. And so during Lent, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be interesting to begin to become aware, like maybe you need to get all of your clothes and label them inside in the back, Ad Usam, right? For your use. And it reminds you, actually, I recommend something to you. There's a very great tattoo parlor. I recommend that somewhere on your body you put Ad Usam, right? For your use, not for your abuse. For your use, and because it does not belong to you. Ultimately, what Lent is all about is to be able to back off the stuff that you have misinterpreted in your life and come closer to that which is whole. But that which is whole is God, the way He wants you to be. Now, that's going to mean different things for different ones of us. There are going to be common practices that we will do together. But not all common practices will make sense to you or be as meaningful to you. That doesn't mean anything. It just means you don't like this particular practice or that particular practice. The Catholic Church is huge. There are things in the Catholic Church you're going to like, and things in the Catholic Church you're not going to like. It's okay. Pick. I'm not telling you to pick from the teachings of the Catholic Church, from the dogma. I'm not encouraging you to do what is called the cafeteria Catholic. Okay? But yes, I want you to be a cafeteria Catholic when it comes to non-essentials. For essentials, the whole kit and caboodle. But for non-essentials, it's cafeteria style. You pick whatever you like. Some of you will like Ignatian spirituality. Some of you will like Franciscan. Some of you will like other kinds. Some of you will like charismatic. Some of you will be devoted to the divine mercies. Some of you will be marriage encounters. All kinds of different things. Try them on. If they don't fit, well, don't. You don't have to. It's one of the things that a lot of people forget, that most devotions are not imposed as something you have to do by the Catholic Church. Now, I think, I've said it many a time, that, for example, all of the devotion to the different apparitions of Mary and the saints, you are not obliged to believe any single one of them. Now, Pope John Paul was extremely devoted, I think, to Fatima, or maybe Lourdes, I think Fatima. Just because he was totally devoted to Fatima doesn't mean I have to even believe it. Why? Because it's not a teaching of the Church. All the Church says is, the Church gives it a nihil obstat, meaning there's no objections here. If you wish, you can embrace it. If you don't wish to, you don't have to. What we are called to embrace is 100% the dogma. That which unites us as the essentials of the faith. So, during this Lent, I want you to think before you start giving stuff up. Okay? Don't give silly stuff up. It's not necessary to give anything up. You might want to take on something. You might want to do something extra for Lent. You might want to, go to Mass more often, or read the Bible more often. Lent begins on Ash Wednesday, which is not a holy day of obligation. Not. We all receive ashes, or if you don't want to, you don't have to. Right? You don't have to. I still remember, I have to tell you this and I'll quit. When I was a young priest, or just 2 years ordained, my pastor was a man I love very much, still alive. I knew Father Bill Pickard. And Father Bill Pickard and I was assigned as his assistant, and we were in the sacristy. And we were about to give ashes, and we had a person who had just entered the church. Just entered the church the year before. And he asked the question. He said, "Where do these ashes come from?" And Father Pickard looked at me, and I could tell by the gleam in his eye that we were about to do something. And I just decided to follow it. And so he said, "Mario, I think we can tell him now, because he's okay. He's Catholic now." "Okay, you promise you can't tell this to anybody?" "Oh no, Father, I won't say anything." "Well, they are the remains of Protestant ministers." It's just to remind us that we're Catholic. The guy's eyes. And Pickard kept it going for a little while, but then he just lost it. Okay. So, just remember, the ashes are a reminder. They come from burnt palms, by the way. Last year's dried palms. That's what it's all about. Okay? So, let me back off before my friend Sharon Vanderberg has my head served in a platter, and take some questions. We have a full 30 minutes of questions, right? Yes, ma'am.